Hi, friends. Hello in the world. Welcome back to this episode of Complaint Free Life. And I'm recording this podcast from Kiev that is not really sunny or not shining. And I'm feeling like maybe it's influencing me. Anyway, I am recording this while having this heavy chest of not wanting to do anything and just lie in bed and sleep. Well, anyway, that's how it is going. So I wanted to share my honesty of what's happening inside. And that's also the topic that I wanted to talk about this week is honesty about dishonesty. And whenever I talk about it, I think it may sound like it's dramatic and bad, and as soon as we talk about dishonesty, it sounds like, oh my God, something bad have occurred, and we should I don't know, it's a heavy topic or it's difficult or something like this. But rather, I will be talking about what's going on within us that is not honest, and whatever the opposite of honest that you in your vocabulary you can put it. And if the word dishonesty scares you or makes you feel like that's not me, I'm not dishonest, I'm always honest, then you can maybe look at it from the perspective of the question that I want to encourage you to ask is, if I'm being really honest, who would I be in life, or what would I do in life? This is really the only question that I'm encouraging all of us to ask. And whenever we ask this question, I find a lot of what was happening until now, is that really honest or it's not? And I was talking this week about rewarding tiredness versus exhausting or depleting tiredness, right? So I find that whenever we bring this real honesty to our lives, of being really honest with ourselves and with people around us, then we gain more of that rewarding tiredness rather than the depleting tiredness. So I will be talking about dishonesty versus honesty. And I will be also talking about how to detect and what is it really that we're talking about. Because I think when it comes to dishonesty, I don't think we are, as human beings in general, I mean, majority of us, I don't think we are dishonest on purpose, or we're dishonest in all of our lives because we want to, and most of what we do in life is honest, and we earn money and we live our lives honestly, and that's amazing. But the dishonesty that I will be talking about is within us, the areas of our lives that no one can see and access except ourselves. And how are we doing in those areas? Are we really being honest with ourselves? Or in the name of life is like this is, and we just need to get through, and this is how things are, or whatever the reasons and excuses we're using, not to really be honest with ourselves in the depths of ourselves if we really looked at it, right? So that's the part that I'm talking about. That's the part where I feel like maybe for some of us, we could use more honesty there. So some of the symptoms that I have been seeing in myself from the past, and also in my clients that I have been talking to, some of the symptoms seem to be displaying of dishonesty, that if we are dishonest within ourselves, in the depths of ourselves, this is how the dishonesty works out or displays to the outside world. And the symptoms seem to be like this. you displaying to the outside world something else than what you might be feeling inside. So in other words, there is this disconnect that you feel, but other people don't really feel it or see it, but you see it in yourself. There is the need to be reacting to things all the time rather than reflecting and wanting to do things on your own terms. There is this feeling of trying to be available, accessible, flexible all of the times to people around you, but knowing or thinking or feeling that that's not really what you want to do, but you think you ought to do it. Feeling that it's all temporary and there is a better life coming, and when you can actually be honest and do everything the way you want to. And this feeling of not knowing what's really going on, but having the need to fix things all the time. So these are the symptoms that I have when I talk to people and when I observe my own life from the past. I think these are the symptoms that come up when we're not really honest within our depth with ourselves. And then to the outside world, this is how it looks like, or this is how we're really acting in the outside world, right? So some of the experience that I remember from my own life back then when I was very heavy on dishonesty would be keep saying that I'm doing well and I'm doing great when I'm actually feeling worse. And in fact, the irony being that the worse I felt within myself, the more I had to cover and disguise and tell to the outside world that I'm doing great. Keep smiling when I actually want to cry the whole time, right? So that's, I think, I don't know about you guys, but that's something that I definitely picked up from my family, of always being in a good mood, not really showing that you're crying. You have to cry inside, but not really outside. Keep working more and more to be liked by people who I didn't like at all. That's like, you know, I don't know, that must be the worst that anyone can do to herself and himself or himself. I think I remember the quote as well that I was so fascinated. I'm sorry that I don't know the name of who wrote it, but saying that trying to please the people that we don't like, impressing people with things when actually we don't like those people. So it was a bit like that, I think, with me as well back in the day. Keep imitating others in order to fit in, right? This is, I think, one of the big ones of when we're not really honest with ourselves, and also really taking over other people's ideas or other people's thinking, other people's way of living, because you don't like your own way of living or because you think that the other people's are better, right? I think that I have done so much in my past, is thinking that, oh, these people must know better how to live better, so I imitate that, or this thinking is how I want to go and live my life because they must know better, right? So it's really being like outward looking and always thinking that the others must know better, so therefore you're not really looking at honestly at what's happening within and why you're trying to just avoid and replace it with something else. The other one that I was super good at it as well is that keep being agreeable with everyone. So meaning that I needed to be the person who agrees with everyone, who has who fears to say something that other people might see it's not in line with their thinking, and therefore I would be again not fitting in, or whatever else that I would be thinking. So these will be I think the areas where I was so heavy on being dishonest with myself. So as you can see that I think when I label it now as dishonesty, maybe it sounds very harsh, and also it sounds like how can I say this about me and all this stuff, right? But I think that's not really the point that we should be I don't know, focusing on, or we should be stuck by, but rather the question is not so much the labeling, or the question is not so much the diagnosis or the symptoms. The question is more like, what is going on within us, and whether we are living that truth that we have to the outside world, or we're just keeping it as this is something that I don't really want to look at it, or this is something that I don't really pay attention to. What's important is what others see of me, or what's happening outside of me, and just being an outward looking and trying to keep doing things as usual. So then I realized that being in that state of mind of being dishonest with myself, and not really knowing that I was being dishonest, but I was just thinking that this is how life is, this is how people function, this is how I also ought to function, right? So I have misled myself for so long thinking that. And then once I realized that being honest with myself is accessible to me at all times, it's just the skill that maybe I forgot to I don't know, practice it, I guess. Yeah, I forgot to practice it because it's something that I feel like needs to be done consciously. And whenever I'm in dishonesty and I'm trying to fix things all the time and not really connected with myself, and always trying to, you know, make sure that I'm creating this good image of myself, which may be not really in line with what I'm really feeling, but it's important that others have a better version or better view of myself. If I'm busy doing that, then obviously I don't really have time to practice honesty, right? I don't really have time to actually reflect and sit back and say, what do I really want to do, if I'm really honest? And I realized that that brings so much calmness, so much relief when I think that, and when I answer that, when I listen to myself. Even though at first it sounds like being honest is difficult, being honest is uncomfortable, being honest may be weird at times, and it's not really easy to practice it. This is what I believed, but once I practice it, I'm like, what was I really trying to disguise here? Or what was I really trying to hide? And the worst part is that I guess I was just trying to hide of who I was. And instead I was trying to show a different version of who I ought to be, and thinking that that's better, or that's how it's supposed to be, right? But if I'm really honest with myself and honest in being as myself, feeling what's really going on within myself, in listening to it honestly, I'm not trying to fix it, I'm not trying to make it better or good, but just being with it, whatever is happening, right? So for instance, today I woke up feeling like I just don't want to do anything, or I just don't want to have this type of weather, or I just, yeah, I want to just crawl into my bed and just stay there. And in that moment, I also know that I had other things and appointments, and I have, sessions today that I want to do, and I have plans. So that's why just being honest with what's happening instead of judging myself and saying, how can you really feel this, or how can you really do this? You should know better, you ought to know better, or you have to get along and you have to go through your life, because you can't just sit around and feeling this way, right? So instead of doing that, instead of doing the judgment, but just staying in that space and saying, yes, honestly, I don't want to work today, but I also know that I have scheduled this and I want to do those sessions. And until that session comes, I will just be honest with myself and compassionate with myself and take care of myself. And the same with learning just to listening to those answers of, if I'm really honest, who do I want to be? And finding the answers and accepting, liking those answers, meaning that even if your brain is like, no, that's not what we can be, or that's not how we are allowed to, or whatever, listening to your heart and saying, yeah, this is who I am. This is how I want to show up. I know it's scary. I know it's maybe different than I was showing up before, but this is how I want to show up. And I think this is, coaching on myself and getting coached by other people, and me coaching other clients as well. I think whenever we coach our brains, eventually we all come to this conclusion that what was the big deal of hiding from our lives? What was the reason why we needed to hide from our lives, from ourselves, why were we creating this disconnect the whole time, right? When we could just recognize that we all have amazingness within us. We all have uniqueness. We all have great capacities, great potential, great power. If we just are being honest and release that inner world to the outside, and then live our lives in the way that feels so honest to us. It feels so right to us, even if it doesn't feel right to others, even if it feels not the way they expected, even if it feels shocking to others. But it feels so good to us. And that's what I've been living for some time now. And I just want to recommend that having that inner peace, having that inner freedom to just say, I just want to be honest. And I want to be honest with myself. And I want to just shine whatever that's coming from inside to outside, and showing my version in ways that maybe people don't always understand, but that's okay. What's important is that I understand. What's important is that this is how I want to live. And I want you all to be experiencing that feeling of relief, that feeling of calmness, that feeling of peace within you, after allowing yourself to be just totally honest with yourself. So my dears, I hope that you will have an amazing Friday and weekend. And I'm actually feeling so much better now that I have gone through this and talked to you about it. And I hope that you will let me know how that's going and some coaching around it. And I'm happy to do that coaching with you. So happy weekend.